welcome to the Tapped Out Podcast Network for one of the most anticipated Tapped In Indie podcast probably of all time. As I'm Nick McDaniel, and I'm joined by none other than Jacked Jameson. What's going on, buddy?
Let me hear you say Frat House. Nick, what's going on, man? I know people have been curious how this was going to go. I'm a little curious myself, to be honest.
Listen, we're both professionals, man. I think we're going to do just fine, absolutely fine. Like I said, we put it out on social media, got some questions sent in. Thank you to everybody who sent those questions in to tappedoutpod@gmail.com. And specifically to our members over on our Patreon page, patreon.com/tappedoutpod. We always tell you, if you're a Patreon member and you send questions into the show, as long as it's a reasonably decent question, we promise you it'll make the list. And that's just for being any member whatsoever on the Patreon page. But hey, we always tell you, remember, at the $1 level, you get the show notes for all the episodes. The $5 levels, you get all the weekly episodes early and in advance. And of course, at the $10 level, anything we do, you're going to get that early. And then at 10 and 25, we got to get crazy, and we have those Tapped Out collectible digital exclusives. $10 level gets you the digital copy. The $25 level actually gets you the 8.5 by 11 signed, autographed by the featured star on that monthly exclusive, only available on Patreon at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Well, James, listen, this week was a big, massive week across the board. Across indie wrestling, but let's be honest, there was a highlight by far and away, the biggest, thing. Would you argue that Onefall Wrestling Summer Stage at Center Stage, biggest event in Georgia wrestling in how long? It's a pretty massive event.
For as long as I've been on Georgia Wrestling Indies, I'll say at least, I don't know what happened before I got here on the Indies, but for as long as I've been wrestling in Georgia, I would say that's the biggest show I know of. There's the videos are out. If you go to the Onefall Instagram or Twitter, I'm still not going to call it X. I call it Twitter. But if you go check those out, there's the video of Brody King's surprise entrance for his debut at Onefall in our 8-man tag match. He teamed up with the Gun Club, filling in for Colton, who's hurt, and QT against me in the Frat House. The video is out there. I was not scared. I was not trying to tag out. For the record, I was excited. I was just as excited as everyone else. I love Brody King. I'm a huge fan, too. I was trying to high-five my friends. They jumped down off the apron because they were scared and didn't want to get in the ring with him. I was not scared. I was just trying to high-five my buddies.
That's what I said. I said, he's trying to high-five him. Like, dude, we're getting another dude. We're getting a guy. And they just bailed on you and left you in there high and dry. I agree with, and we're going to go into that a little more in depth. I thought, look, I discussed this a little bit on the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight a little bit, but I wanted to ask you specifically just some thoughts. And I know, look, you were working, you had a match. So it's not like you got to sit there and watch all of them. But I actually kind of wanted just some thoughts and overall impressions of some things. Look, I know the pre-show we had the big battle royal. Any thoughts?
Oh, man, shout out to my man, that man, Nasty Leroy.
Arguably, probably one of the most stunning moments. I will say, of all of the other surprises, the Nasty Man, Nasty Leroy, winning the Battle Royal, completely caught me off guard, completely out of left field. But look, he is an old school, and people may not know this, very much an old school, like all the way back to the early days of Onefall wrestling. Like, he was a guy that has been around there for a long time. And so kudos.
He's been there longer than me, and I think I'm probably the longest tenured regular member of the roster for Onefall. I was, I say I'm the last trainee of the Onefall Power Factory before it became the Nightmare Factory, and Nasty was there long before I was. He was on these shows. You can go back. There's YouTube. There's videos of him wrestling QT on the old Onefall shows, and he's got promos out there. He loves his promos.
Yeah, I was actually at that show at the old Norcross location when he wrestled QT. It was crazy. But yeah, he's been around for a long time. So kudos, and that's kind of, let's be honest, there was a lot of, I get it, there was a lot of AEW, a lot of Ring of Honor influence on this show, but at its core, Summer Stage was very much, would you say, an appreciation show for the talents who have hit the roads like week in and week out, all of these, Onefall shows, and I mean, we're talking Watkinsville, McDonough, Cumming, Gainesville, didn't match Stone Mountain, Lawrenceville, like they're just making these talents. And it was a huge opportunity for those guys to get to perform on a big stage. So, look, I know everybody's like, wait, I mean, it's cool that Nasty got that, that moment there at Center Stage.
Yeah, I mean, that's, QT's whole idea behind all of this was he said it from day one with Summer Stage. It was really more about giving back to, the regular members of the roster that show up every single week and set up the ring and break down the ring and pass out flyers. And, they work hard on social media trying to advertise. And, they just go out there every week and they interact with the fans and they do their best with their matches. And, they've really helped us grow as a company. And the fact that we have so many shows and we are able to do at least one show every week, if not two, sometimes three, sometimes five. And that's really just because of the roster that we have. And these guys and girls go out and, they bust their ass. And it's nice to be able to give them something to really hang their hat on and say they were a part of something special like that,
And it was, man. Like I said, it was a lot of standout things. Look, let's go ahead and get the one out of the way. Obviously, MJF, like obviously and we talk about it there's lots of indie promotions out there that what you do is you put somebody to draw the eyes and then you get them in there and they see the product of what you're putting out there on a weekly basis. And obviously MJF was, weirdly enough, somehow, some way, I'm not really sure how this happened in hindsight, I ended up working his VIP table for him. Like it just happens. That's what happens at Onefall. You never know what's going to happen. And the next thing you know, I'm like, hey,
yeah, you bring your working boots to a Onefall show. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Like it's out of the blue. It's like, hey, could you go get MJF and bring him up from the locker room? And can you work the table? I'm like, yes, I think it's the answer to that question. But having him on the show was literally, I guess, it's hey, let's get a bunch of eyes turned and let's get them in the building. And then let's, do what we do, including things like right out of the gate, Jay Lethal and Adam Priest opened up the show. And so it's kind of like if you were if you wanted the in-ring action, like we gave you that like right out of the jump with those two. Not that they don't have something we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Mr. Jay Lethal is very much character personality, but
yeah, brother.
And they absolutely tore the house down. One of my favorite matches of the night.
Adam Priest actually has a lot of personality himself. I know people always put him over as being one of the best workers out there and in-ring talents, but if you actually get to hear Adam cut some promos and interact with him, he's super entertaining as well.
No, and if you talk to him outside the ring, and like I said, you cut the promos, I agree. I think he could very well make a list that we discussed later in this show as well. I always say that about him, but I think he's not. I think everybody across the country knows who he is at this point. You also had Big Time Wrestling send in their heavyweight champion, Aaron Solo. He, of course, successfully defended that against Mark, is the way.
Michael Allen, Richard Clark, Mr. Push-Ups, baby. Big fan of Mark.
And Atlanta's own Carly Bravo.
Who doesn't love Carly Bravo? Love Solo as well. Great matchup, man. These guys, all three of them are incredible athletes. Everybody's in great shape. All three of them are entertaining, man. This was really a match I was looking forward to a lot, and they delivered as always.
Oh, without question. Like I'm not surprised by the three gentlemen in the ring. Absolutely knocked it out of the park. And if you're curious, go watch the footage. I keep telling everybody, like, Carly, I think the fans like Carly. I mean, the reaction he got was outstanding. Only rivaled by another couple that we'll touch on here shortly. Then, of course, it was followed up by.
Oh, you know what? Real quick, just because I want to give them the credit, there was a trios match on the pre-show as well. And just my buddy, my little buddy, Michael Solar, he got one hell of a reaction coming out there to start that match. And I know that meant a lot to him. So that was a big moment for him, KJ and Sebastian picking up a big win there.
Let me, I'll sidebar there for a question because you brought it up, Michael Solar, and the reaction he got. And I think that can be attributed to a couple things. Obviously, Michael Solar, his personality, and they love him. and things like that. But I also took it, I had a conversation with somebody there at the building, and I said, I think the magic of what happened, because, again, sidebar off of a sidebar, 559, hell of a crowd. I mean, hell of a crowd for that building. Outdrew some larger promotions that have run there in the past. But I think the unique thing that happened, and I wanted to get to there eventually, but this is, I think, a great reason. McDonough, Watkinsville, Cumming, Gainesville, Stone Mountain. You guys run, Onefall runs basically all outside the perimeter for the most part, but it was a very doable drive from all of those locations. So for them all to come in, you weren't drawing one audience anymore. You were drawing from basically 4, 5, 6 cities to drive in and do this. And I think that's how that number was achieved. But to go back to the Solar piece, it was because of that you guys did such a good story of a good job of these stories that they're town to town to town following. So everybody got to see the road coming together to this show. But Solar is so popular everywhere he goes that everybody was known. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to. It wasn't like there wasn't a lot of people in the crowd that were like, we don't know who this guy is. No, like they knew who everybody was and they were invested in those people.
Yeah, so that was something, when you talk to a lot of people outside of Atlanta, telling them about events inside of Atlanta, their immediate reaction is always, the traffic, I don't want to make that drive, I don't know. So we, a lot of us were worried, like, are we going to get all of our regular fans coming in? Like, are everybody going to know what's going on? Are they going to know the people? Or are we going to get just random fans? Is anybody going to come? Who even knows, So it was great that we had so many of our regular fans from every location that we do came out. And I think it's evidence in what you said with them all reacting so much to Solar, who does such a good job of interacting with the fans before and after the shows, and he really gets them to buy into them. Solar, he works really hard. He trains with Gresham. And he reminds me of like a Daniel Bryan type, Bryan Danielson, small, undersized, but he's got that fight in him. So that was great. And then you also hear it in things like when Angelica Risk made her entrance, that crowd, just a huge reaction for her. Tyler Shoup came out. He hit the Shoup trains harder, and everybody in the arena did it with him. You could hear it backstage. There was a few other people that came out. They got their chance going with the crowd. The crowds already knew him. Obviously, Brody. Everybody knows the Brody. But yeah, it was just cool that so many of our fans from all the different shows that we do came and showed up for this show, and we appreciate them all making that drive. I know it's a pain sometimes dealing with that traffic and getting out there, and especially on a Friday night. But
I mean, look, that's Atlanta, but I mean, I think the venue was the right choice just because of the nostalgia and the, just the importance and the history of that building and wrestling.
Yeah, it's the video package that they put together with Tony Schiavone narrating and the history of Center Stage, and they combined it with our current roster. I thought that was incredible. I'm in it a ton, so that made me happy.
Well, speaking of you being in it, let's go ahead and let's get right into it. Frat House versus, it was called the New Gun Club. Obviously, it was QT, and it was supposed to be Billy and his two sons. Colton's down. Brody King, we kind of touched on that a little bit, came in. Things kind of didn't go your way in the long run or whatever, but
great.
Let's be fair. That's a heck of a roster on the other side of the ring as well.
I mean, hey, if you're going to lose to a group of people, at least it was that group of people, you know what I mean? Plus, win or lose, we booze. So we still went out. We had a great time. We all flew to Chicago the next day, hungover for TV. Thankfully, we had a pretty easy day. Just kind of hung out and babied our hangovers.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
Yeah, the match, that's incredible to be able to be in there. And like we talked about earlier, Brody came out and the people lost their minds. But also you could see there's a video we put on the Onefall social media of Brody's entrance, and you can see a full shot of the entire crowd and those seats. It says 559, but there must have been some people in there without tickets, because you don't see too many empty seats in there when you see that full panoramic video going around the entire arena. And all you see is maybe the top couple rows there have some empty ones, but outside of that, that's a packed out arena going nuts.
Yeah, and like I said, it was I think that match delivered. I think what again, we've teased this a couple of times. We're going to get there in a little bit. Lots of character, lots of personality and charisma in that ring. I think that's why that match worked so well. And we'll come back to that when we talk about that later in the show. The next match I wanted to ask you about, and I don't, again, you had just, wrestled, so you may not have seen a ton, but the coffin match between Sid and Kieran Gray, I mean, absolutely stood out in a way because it was just so different to everything we had seen to that point. And the level of the intensity and this the willingness to take and give out punishment in that match was insane. And the stuff they put each other through, I don't know if you saw after the show, Sid's back was just absolutely just beat to, I mean, it was horrendous. We'll get to the big surprise in a second, but are you shocked with that history of those two that they went out there and just kind of put it all on the line like they did?
No, not at all, because we've been seeing them do that to each other for the last year. They've every match they have, even in regular singles matches where it is, all the rules involved, like it's just a regular singles wrestling match, and they'll go out there and they'll try and choke each other to death. They hit each other with weapons and non-hardcore matches. They don't care. They just want to hurt each other. It's pure violence with them. There's a deep hatred. I don't know the full backstory. I think they used to be friends and something might have happened. I don't know, but they're, we've seen it unfold over the last year, and that match is pretty much everything you expected, other than the big surprise, which I don't know if anybody expected. But Kieran was, to me, it seemed like Kieran was just putting a beating on Sid, and thankfully there was that big surprise to come say it, because that looked like certain. He might have needed a real coffin, because Kieran was gonna curb stomp Sid onto that coffin, and that could have ended his career, ended his life. Who knows what would have happened?
Little history lesson that I was filled in on, believe it or not, these two used to be a tag team when they first started, and they used to be roommates. I mean, QT brought up a point, maybe one of them didn't do the dishes a lot and let them pile up in the sink. Who knows how this thing starts? But apparently, obviously, the big surprise that did happen when it looked as though Kieran was literally, we don't know what he was going to do next, but it didn't look well. He had taped Sid's arm behind his back, had him laid over and he looked like he was going to do something. The lights go out, the lights come on, and AEW superstar Darby Allin's in there, and literally the fans just went bananas. And to find out, I guess they started under Darby. Hence the thing, he's had a relationship with these two, therefore he wasn't going to let that happen. But, one thing about, in our whole conversation last week about this show, QT's like, you can't let all the surprises out of the bag, right? Like, you got to have something that's going to create the sense of urgency. And I said to him after the show, I would not be shocked if you were completely sold out next time, because now Summer Stage, we're assuming, by the way, a massive assumption. I'm not speaking from any knowledge. Next year when this show runs, people are going to buy their tickets because you have no idea. Like, just because they advertise names are there, somebody's going to show up. Something's going to happen. There's going to be a surprise.
Yeah, man. Look at the names that we did have advertised already, and then I don't know if you get the big surprises in Brody King and Darby Allin coming out. But obviously MJF being there, which I'm wearing my Happy Gilmore shirt. I don't know if you saw Happy Gilmore 2 yet. I watched it the other night. It was incredible. I loved it. So big shout out to MJF, because Happy Gilmore, that movie was great. But we had him, Harley Cameron, Jay Lethal, and Sanjay showed up. Who else was Satnam Singh was in the Casino Gauntlet, which we're about to get to here in a second.
Yeah.
Which I think that was the next match coming up after that, right? So
correct. And that's so we had to take a little bit of a break because they had to get that. The coffin was massive. It was heavy. They get it out, and then we get the Casino Gauntlet match where we're going to crown the new Onefall Wrestling Breakout champion, and some crazy stuff in here. This, again, I always tell people, you want to follow them on social media. You want to catch the videos because there's always going to be some cool footage. And this specific match was loaded with entrants and, some big spots. You brought up Satnam Singh being in there. But the big news obviously was Parker and Vari being 1 and 2. We'll get to that, why that's so important in a moment. Lots of, like you said, just people coming in. A huge moment where Warden and Satnam had a big, massive face-off, and that, my friends, is when you can tell how big Satnam is. If you've never seen him in person, when you see the Warden next to him and how little he made Warden look.
I did see this, and first of all, shout out to Warden, because for some reason, somehow, he got a massive reaction when he walked out, very positive, which, if you've been to a Onefall show, is weird because everybody hates him. So I don't know why he got this big reaction. Everybody loves him now all of a sudden. But shout out to Warden for that. And yeah, when he stepped in the ring with Satnam, that's just insane, because Warden is one of the biggest members of our roster. And Satnam just kind of dwarfed him there, but he did hold his own. Hey, they did that whole meat man thing and smashed like a couple of bulls, and Warden held his own and right up until the end there.
And I think that's cool to see that moment of now, like, even in the situation, how it plays out, Warden is, I mean, we hate to try, I don't like to use term, but it elevated Warden on a level to see him stand there and go toe to toe with Satnam, no matter how things turn out at the end. But speaking of how they turned out in the end, big friend of the show and your new breakout champion, going the distance from, all the way from the early starting the match, Varia Morales wins and is your new breakout champion. And I don't think that really comes as much as a surprise to either one of us. But I think hopefully it draws more attention from across the state / country, this guy being a guy who deserves this title.
For sure. I mean, we talk about Nasty Leroy being a long-time Onefall guy, Varia Morales, long-time Onefall guy. He was there back then before it became Nightmare Factory as well. He was doing these shows. And nobody, in my opinion, there's nobody in Georgia that's a better in-ring that isn't currently on TV, than Varia Morales, as well as the entire country. I think he's one of the best workers. He's got the personality. He's got the look. But his ability in the ring to have, maybe the best match on every card that he's on is always something to stand for. But he's, he does deserve to break out and get better opportunities. And, hopefully this helps him get booked more and make some more money and finally get some recognition that's been long overdue for him.
I agree. I could put you on the spot. There's a question I always have about Varia about why he's not booked more, but we'll stay away from that for another day, right? Moving on to the women's title match. This one listen, and I said this on the Spotlight show. I'm going to repeat it here. With all due respect to the winner of the match, I honestly felt like Isis Reed going into this, the problem child. I mean, she literally, I felt like was the underdog of the bunch. So, I thought the other three, I have consistently said, I feel are three of the best women's wrestlers in Georgia, and, a lot of even beyond. So for her to go in there and capture this title, I felt, again, with all due respect, I think the world of her, but I do feel like it was kind of the upset of that particular match.
Sure. She's young, but she's hungry. She wants it real bad, and she works hard. She trains every day. She was a wrestler, amateur wrestler, I believe. She has a background. She's very athletic. She started training with Gresham very young. She came over to the Nightmare Factory to train with Billy and QT. She's still training now, but she works really hard, and the fans always come out and support her very much. So it is well deserved. She might have been the underdog, and it may have been a surprise, but she has earned it. She's worked very hard for that. Sneakily, this match, they tried as hard as they could to take that match of the night. They got some of the best reactions all night long. They got that well-deserved, "This is awesome" chant. All four of those women really went out there and busted their asses, and they really brought that match home. That was a great, incredible match, and all four of them deserved that title. But, Kiki, once again, picking up the big win, and she deserves that.
Yeah, we want to specifically shout out. I mean, all of the women in this match: Robin Renegade, Isis Reed, obviously your winner, Angelica Risk, and of course Hyena Hera, who I've said I think is really making a chase for the female wrestler of the year. She was winning titles all over the place, and her and Parker Lee and the pair they've become across the state of Georgia, I think they're a great package. But again, as a whole, I think all four women deserve it, because you're right. It was it was a moment that it kind of like gives you like literally, I know it's really weird things that give me chill bumps now, but like just talking about it right now to see the reaction they were getting was like, you're talking to a guy that like literally for the longest time was like, Georgia women's wrestling is just in a very bad place. Like it just wasn't.
Real quick, same thing. When we were talking about it, I got some goosebumps myself. It was just very, it's a great thing.
I think it's a great thing, and we have said from time and time again that a lot of places that they start these women's divisions, and I'm like, why? Like you're not going to deliver. Just don't. It's just easier just not to. But we've always said Onefall easily had the deepest women's roster across the board because of who they get, who they have, and then who they have on a consistent basis. That's the other thing. It just feels like other promotions are like bringing in this one, and then they do a one-off with their champion, then they bring in another, and I'm like, okay, that's not a women's division. Like Onefall has a women's division, and that match when it was announced showed how literally 4 out of the gate they were like, this is how deep they are. And look, hey, are we going long on a women's match on the podcast? 100%, because it's a rare occasion where I feel like it deserved it.
That's something else Georgia Indy wrestling needs to get more involved with, man. The women's wrestlers, let's, step up your crap. Let's not to be.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too far into it, but, there's a lot of good women's wrestlers out there, and some of these shows don't even have one women's match. So, step up your game.
Now that leads us, of course, to the main event. Brady Booker, Ilya Drago in a steel cage, the main event for the Onefall Heavyweight Championship. This goes back for months after months after, look, I had betting odds released here on the podcast when that tournament with the crown the first champion. Brady Booker was by far and away the odds-on favorite to win that tournament. Everybody just said he's your odds-on favorite. But for I'm not really sure. Something happened, and he didn't end up getting to compete, and so therefore. But with all due respect, I also come back would say for weeks and weeks and weeks I've been telling people, Drago, he could have essentially when it got close to show date said, "Hey, I'm mailing this thing in. I'm going to rest. I'm going to get ready for this big match for Jay," and he did not. He continued and continued. It felt like every single show Onefall ran, he was defending that title. So I gave him the props for doing that as a competitor. But he comes up short in this match and losing the title. And I asked myself, but in the long run, he did all of the right things doing what he did. But did it come back to bite him because of that schedule that he kept up along the way?
I don't think so. I don't think he would have changed anything he did. Elijah is a good, close personal friend of mine. We did live together for over a year. We trained together. That's my buddy, and I know him, and I know how hard he works and how much that title meant to him. And I know that he would rather go out there and defend it every night of the week rather than sit at home and do nothing. He's, as he likes to tell everybody, he's 6'4", 260, best athlete. So he's going to go out there. He's going to kick butt. He's not going to sit at home and get lazy. He's going to hit the gym every morning. He's going to get his thing done. He's going to go hit training every night. And then anytime there's a show, he's going to step out. He's going to show out. And he's going to hurt some people because that's just what he does. And then, we had a couple of tag matches leading into Summer Stage, me and Elijah, against Brady and QT, which we won. And then another one against Brady and Shoop, which we won. So, it wasn't like he was defending his title in those matches, but he is still competing on a high level. And, we talked about that match on Monday, not to get too far off from Summer Stage, but when you see 4 athletes like Tyler Shoop and Brady Booker teaming against Elijah Drago and Jacked Jameson, you're not going to find that in too many other main events on an indie show. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Like it's, we actually hey, we've got 4 guys. And I'm not going to sidebar into a conversation that happened with somebody else this week, but I mean, it was the sense of wrestling should be based in a world as a whole. I'm talking broad strokes here. I'm not talking the specifics and exceptions. 4 guys that, are like guys getting in the ring that should be able to kick your butt. Like that's what you think larger than life superhero, athletes, fighter, whatever. And that's kind of what made that stand out so much when we're standing there looking and I see 4 guys that I'm like, okay, this is wrestling. Like, this is what it should be, right? Like, in my grand scheme of things. And maybe that's the
sure.
80s kid in me.
And then also, I know we're going to get into this, but in a little bit here, but then you also have, not only do all four of us have that look of the over the life action figure superhero look, but then you have four guys who also have all the charisma in the world. And really, that's it comes down to wrestling. I was told it comes down to three things, and that's in-ring ability, look, and personality. So, if you got two out of those three, which we have before the bell even rings, we're doing pretty good right there for a match, because we had that crowd going and we never even locked up. I think it was about 5 minutes before we even touched, and they were going nuts the whole time. So once you get two out of those three things, you don't even have to do anything yet, and you already have the crowd interested,
And look, we're going to go into that, because I wanted to ask you, like, that was part of the thing with why the reaction the main event got, was because character, personality, story had been built, week after week, as they were, those two were making the loop across Georgia more and more. It was like, hey, we want Brady to win. Why are the fans so invested, and why are they why do they love Brady Booker so much? And I tell people, I would say this to him and he wouldn't take it that way. I would go, that's because of his character and his personality. Like, they love him. They don't worry about what moves he's doing, and it's not that. They love him. This works as much as the spear at the end, it seems, or whatever, towards the end, right? Like, that's just, they love him.
Yeah, it's the authentic Brady. Like, if you have a conversation with Brady backstage, it's the same as if you have a conversation with Brady in the ring while he's beating somebody up. That is Brady Booker. It's his genuine, authentic self. And he goes out there and he gives himself to the fans and to his matches. And that's why people appreciate and respect him, and they want to see him win, and they cheer for him so much, because he just goes out there and he lets them into who he is.
Yeah. And he had that moment. Brady Booker is your new Onefall champion. Big, huge.
I tried to stop it. I'm not even going to front. I tried to help Eli. That stupid Austin Gunn came out, that little ass boy ruined it, but
I was going to stay away from it. I didn't want to get into it as far. I was like, hey,
I don't mind. I'll air dirty laundry all day. I don't care.
I was like, he picked up the win with the DDT on the chair, and I wanted to ask, hey, how did the chair even get in the ring? Well, you answered that question. So go back and check out the footage, folks. But again, it's like, let's get into that. You've teased it. We've teased it now 3 times maybe at this point. One of the topics we wanted to get into this week was about the character, the personality, and the charisma. And it's because one of the things I talk about here on the show on a regular basis, like, everybody is so caught up in being the best wrestler, in the world or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really know that ever, you have to be good. I'm not saying you can be terrible, but I'm like, I don't really think, and look, we just, again, I don't go in the weeds on this part, but we just lost a dude that his whole entire career was based on a character, personality, and nothing really, his in-ring work was not the greatest in the world. And I just think, to me, that's a huge thing. Like, make them care, make them love, hate you, either one, and just draw the people in emotionally, because I always say, I think wrestling is made up of moments over moves in a grand scheme of things. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Absolutely. I mean, when you go back and think about your favorite moments in wrestling, it's not, a sequence of moves and arm reversals and wrist locks and who's doing hammer locks into a headlock, and then here comes whatever. Who cares, Manhattan drop into a drop kick. And nobody remembers that stuff at the end of the day. It's the moments and the things you do. I had this conversation with Scotty Tuhati backstage the other week, and he was telling us, he was like, if I went out there and I won the match, but I didn't do the worm, people would be pissed. He goes, but if I did the worm and I lost, he goes, people would be happy, because it's the thing they want to see. They don't care about the wins and losses and the moves. They want to see that moment, and they want to be involved, and they want to be part of the show. So you have to find ways to get them involved in the match. You can't just keep going through your spots and doing the wrestling, because eventually they kind of tune out, and they, as Billy Gunn would say, they do this. They pull out their phones and start looking up stuff that they don't need to be looking up instead of watching your match, because you're not involving them in your match.
It's the reaction, the feedback. It's the whole, that's it. And I say that all the time. And look, part of this whole thing kind of packages together. I want to kind of lump these two topics together that we have on the notes here. like the character, personality, charisma, but your look kind of pairs with that. Like it's kind of got to all work as like a package, right? Like it can't be just like, hey, this is my character, but like you don't look anything like that. Like that, nobody's gonna buy that piece either.
For sure. So like, so I work at AEW, right? And AEW is where the best wrestle. Well, not everybody is gonna be able to have those best wrestling matches. Like Will Ospreay, Swerve Strickland, the Bucks, Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, all those guys, like elite level, they're going to be having those 45-minute main event matches where you're just mind blown, unbelievable. He goes, but everybody else on the show, you got to find a way to get on there because not everybody's going to get those 45-minute incredible matches. So you can't get on there with a 3-minute match doing something crazy. Like you're not going to have an incredible match in 3 minutes. I don't care who you are. Like whatever. So you have to find ways to get people invested, and you have to find ways to make people care about you in 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever the time is. And you're not going to do that through wrestling. I'm sorry, but it's just, there's not enough time to tell that story that you want to tell. So you have to have some kind of hook. And usually that hook comes from your look and your personality. And those things have to tie together too. You can't go out there looking like a bodybuilder and then you act like some, I don't know, idiot. Like you can't be like a chef and then you just go out there and you don't do any chef style stuff. It doesn't make sense. And also the look doesn't mean you have to have a full 6-pack and look like, the big movie star guy. It just, the look is you have to have something interesting about you, like a Papa Shango type, Sean that was in the Nightmare Factory and did Turnbuckle for a little bit in the Onefall shows. He had that Papa Shango kind of gimmick and it made him stand out, and the fans immediately took to him after like this first match just because he had a different look than everybody else on our show.
And a lot of it is personality tied into the look, the whole, like you said, or whatever. Look, on the AEW level, my classic example was Toni Storm. Like at one point, she was a great women's wrestler, right? Like that's what she was. Everybody knew she could wrestle, but she was I get it. She was a little bit different, but now she is so different that you just watched her go from here to now. She's in a whole different stratosphere of, being like the woman, that she is the woman at, AEW, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, but she's the woman and she's the bar right now in AEW because she did it.
World champion, man. She's more talked about than her and Mercedes, 1A, 1B, back and forth, whoever you want to put, but same thing with both of them. Just their personalities and their looks stand out. They're both incredible wrestlers, obviously. They can have 5-star matches between the two of them all day long. But their look and their personality is really what drives it home. That's why you'll see them doing segments more than you'll see them just having wrestling matches, because that segment really drives home the character and personality. And then you throw the wrestling matches in with the segments and you get that whole complete feel, and that's how the fans really get behind somebody.
I stressed that the young talent that we were talking to one day, and I explained to them, if you make it, let's say, first of all, we're going to do the huge if you get there. The odds are typically you're going to be doing more segments and promos than actual in-ring work. Like you said, can you get 3 minutes with a microphone or some backstage and draw their attention? Because every week they're not going to give you 11, 12 minutes on TV to wrestle to prove that you're the best wrestler in the world. It's, can you go out there and can you talk them into the building? I think that's usually more than anything. You have to be able to talk people into the ring, into the arena.
For sure. With the Frat House, we've been doing, we do these pledge parties in all the cities we go to, and we go and hang out with the fans, play some drinking games, and, they film them and then they air them on the shows, Ring of Honor. They put the one on Dynamite, and they use them as like our vignettes or video package during our entrance or before or after the match, depending on the situation. But sometimes we don't even have a match, and they'll just air those. But that's helped us, with the fans more than anything. We're heels. We cheat to win every match we're in. We've never won a match clean on our own power. That's always the numbers game. You know how I roll. That's just what we do. We pick up a win to pick up a win, and that is what it is. But, that's, even with that, the fans have been starting to cheer for us more and more, and we're starting to pick up fans, especially kids, which blows my mind. Like these Onefall shows, I'll have the dads of kids coming up to me and they're like, my kids listen to your song because it's on Spotify. My T-call, it's Frat House. That's just with the money sign. But it's on Spotify, so you can go and listen to it all day long if you want. And the dads tell us, like, all throughout the day randomly, you can hear the kids go, Frat House.
And it's character. It's literally, it's character. It's character, personality, like I said, and I think that's a huge, huge point. Because otherwise you might find yourself a little bit on the underrated and underappreciated side. And as you know, the award named after one Vari Morales, who we discussed earlier, he had such a run on being on this list that we said, okay, Vari's out. He can't be on the list anymore. He was literally on it every single month. So I wanted to do something a little bit of a mixture here. I've never done this in the past. Completely kind of turned the list over to you. I let the guest host kind of do their list of the underrated, underappreciated, and they're wise. So go ahead and start with your number one, man.
So this is, it is going to be a little biased. This is going to be the Onefall underrated, underappreciated list for me here. But I'm going to start with number 5. We're going to start with Mr. Scott Barnett, who, Nick, you know probably more than a lot of people how much Scott does for Onefall. He had wrestling at Southern for a little while, and then he teamed up with QT, and he's really been a big part of what we do at Onefall, backstage and behind the scenes. And really without him, it would be a mess trying to get everything set up, because he's always committed to being there. He's the first one there. He's the last one to leave. He does as much, if not more, than everybody, and everybody loves and appreciates Scott. So I want to make sure he gets on this list. I know he doesn't really wrestle anymore, but he used to. But everybody there really appreciates and respects him, so I wanted to give him a shout out here real quick.
Look, he's been on the list before. I totally 100% agree with that pick.
Great. And then number 4, kind of going in with Scott here, it's going to be a little tie between JD Inc., Trevor Blackwell, and Jamie Holmes, because they are part of that leadership role in the ring crew and getting the show set up with Scott. But then, also all 3 of them wrestle for us. And they all wrestle around Georgia and other areas. And those guys all work really hard. And I know QT does as well, but I personally appreciate and respect everything they do for us. So big shout out to those 3 guys.
Yeah, agreed.
Coming in at number 3, I had Sunny Days, Mr. Dylan. Because Dylan at Summer Stage really went above and beyond, helping us out, getting things done there on the production side and the backstage end. And I know he was maybe going to be part of a match potentially, and this is really going behind the scenes and pulling the curtain back. But he personally took a step back from being in one of those matches just to help out and make sure that the production and everything ran as smooth as possible. So I know QT really appreciated that from him. And when I heard about that, I was kind of like, wow, that's crazy that he would offer to do that. So I wanted to make sure he made this list too. So big shout out to Dylan Sonny. Coming in at number 2, we already talked about my man, that man, Nasty Leroy, picking up the big win in the pre-show battle royal. And like I said before, Nasty deserves that win almost as much, if not more, than anybody deserves a win on that show. He works so hard, and he's such a positive light to have in your locker room, and everybody loves Nasty. So big shout out to Nasty. Number 2 on the list. And then number 1 coming in, we talked about him a little bit in the Casino Gauntlet. My buddy, former member of BGU, current member of BGU. He's been kicked out and brought back in multiple times. Mr. Parker Lee. Parker is one of the best in-ring athletes that I've seen personally. And now that he's been paired up with Hyena and they've been kind of on their run, I think it's really brought out a lot of personality in him that he's kind of maybe missed before early on when he got started here. But now he's really finding his confidence, and he's really pulling that character and personality out of himself. He's always had the look. He's always had the in-ring ability. And now with Hyena and getting some confidence behind his promos, he's really started to become entertaining and found his own. So big shout out to my boy Parker. Number 1, underrated, underappreciated on the Jacked Jameson Onefall list here for Summer Stage.
And look, I agree. Look, every pick's on there. I'm a huge Parker fan. I've said that since that pairing has happened. I think that they should be a pairing that everybody should be taking advantage of as far as booking them all over the state, because it gives you so much flexibility with it.
Yeah, if you're smart.
Yeah, if you're smart. I mean, I literally this past week I said that to somebody. I'm like, I'm just saying, if it were me, I'd probably book this because it's a pairing that you could get. I'm just saying.
Yeah, if you're a good booker, they're two great wrestlers, two great personalities. So if you know what you're doing, booking a promotion, you probably want to book Parker and Hyena. Yeah.
Absolutely. Speaking of knowing things, our listeners, we put this post out. I am always amazed on a weekly basis when we put these fan questions out, and I posted it. I think it was like Sunday. I was like, "Hey, Jacked Jameson's going to be on the show. Send your questions in." I paraphrased the death out of that thing, but everybody that sent them in to tappedoutpod@gmail.com, please going forward, always remember tappedoutpod@gmail.com makes it easier because they all go to funnel to one place versus me trying to jump all over all the social medias, and everybody does a pretty good job of that for the most part. But I wanted to get into some of the questions. We had a question, and I wanted to ask you. Didn't have the name, didn't have anything with it, but essentially the question was, you travel all over the entire country now with what you do with AEW Ring of Honor, and it said, is there somebody who doesn't wrestle in Georgia that you'd love to actually see working here?
Yes, I'm gonna build a little suspense. I gotta turn my AC up. I'm sweating. Hold on 1 second.
Do 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 do. All right,
Bear Bronson, baby, my former Iron Savage tag team partner. I would love to see Bear Bronson down here in Georgia. He had one of his first matches, if not first match, on the Indies officially was at GCW. It was a death match against Slade. And I think within 2 days, GCW announced that it was match of the year for GCW. So big shout out to my blood bear, Bronson. I think he would do well down here. Places like Action, Southern Honor, maybe the Apex would be great spots for him. I know he had a match against Cruel. It was a hardcore match up in the Northeast. He said it was one of his favorite matches of all time. So that would be cool to see maybe a rematch between them. I know he's got Alex Hammerstone at GCW this Sunday, so that'll be a huge opportunity for him. Hopefully he picks up a big win. That'll be a massive win for him. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there. But yeah, I think I would love to see Bear Bronson make his way down to Georgia.
Bookers, you heard it first. Bring him in, especially Matt Griffin specifically. That Action sounds like that would be a good place for that match to happen.
As soon as I saw that question, I was like, I feel like Action would be right up Bear's alley.
Rico from Rome, what's one Georgia wrestler you have not locked up with yet, but you really want to?
So I have had tags and multi-man matches against them, but Brady Booker, your new Onefall heavyweight champion, we've never had a singles match, so I think that's the pretty obvious choice right there.
Title on the line, maybe?
Hey, I like gold.
Haley Haley from Warner Robinson. Now that you kind of wrestled all over, how does Georgia indie wrestling scene compare to the rest of the country?
It's a little more political from my personal experience, I'll just say, and from friends of mine who I've heard have other experiences. It seems to me Georgia can tend to lean. Now, I will say over the last year or so, it seems like maybe it's gotten away from this and they are starting to branch out a little more. But in the past, it seemed like maybe it was a little more too cliquey, and it was really about who you knew rather than, potential or skill, ability, work ethic, who shows up to help out with ring crew or not. It really just seemed more like who you were buddies with would get you booked on a show. But I will say it does seem like it's kind of moved away from that, and people are more open to bringing in other talents from outside areas and expand their shows and their fan base. So that's cool to see.
I think the calls for, we've seen this match 100 times. Can we get some fresh matches in? I think it's become a thing where it's having to.
Yeah.
Troy from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If you could have the Frat House feud with any stable in AEW or Ring of Honor, who are you going to choose and why?
Oh, those sons of bitches, the Outrunners. that's I just think with the Frat House and the Outrunners personalities and individual, we could have a lot of fun doing that stuff. Maybe we could play them in some drinking games and see what happens. They just dressed up like a pack of Newport cigarettes for All In. So, those boys like to party.
Speaking of a program that would be filled with character, personality, and charisma, right? Lindsay, you didn't put a city in. So, Lindsay, which Georgia-based wrestler do you think is ready to break out for TV next?
So I got two. One for the men, one for the women. For the women, I'll say Angelica Risk. She's got it all. Her talent, in-ring ability. She's got the personality, the charisma. She's got the look. Everybody loves her. She gets cheered even when she's being the heel. She's incredible. I think she's more ready for TV than just about anybody out there on the indies right now. So somebody listening, get her a contract. And then on the men's side, obviously Brady and Elijah are ready, but they're, we get it. So somebody else, he is based in Nashville, but he is part of the Onefall roster. And I will say that Shoop trains harder because he's fit for success and better than the rest. Somebody put this man on TV, Tyler Shoop.
I 100% agree with that statement. I'd heard a ton about the young man, and yes, he is a young man compared to me. But when he came in, seeing him in person, kind of took it to a whole other level of respect. Dan from San Antonio, is there somebody on that you faced on AEW Dark or Ring of Honor TV who just surprised you with how good they actually were?
Yeah. So, I knew how good they were, but being in the ring with Top Flight and Action Andretti for some trios matches, those guys, everything they do is so effortless, and just all the flying through it's no effort whatsoever. They're like, I don't even know, like butterflies or something. They just get up and here we are, and they're in the air and they come down nice and smooth. And it's incredible to see them in the ring doing what they do.
It's one thing to hear it, but then it's when you're in there with it, it's a whole different thing when you actually see it up close and personal.
Yeah. They're just in the air for forever. Their hang time is crazy. I don't know how they do it.
Corey from Savannah, Georgia, you've done singles, tags, and six-mans. What's your favorite format and why?
For me, tags. Singles are cool. I know everybody wants to be the singles champion. And then trios are fun as well. 8-mans are also fun, but trios and 8-mans, it's that extra body or two can kind of start making things get a little hectic. Where tags, I feel like it's the fun of having multiple people in the match, but you still have some organization and, the rules are still in place there. And really, it gives you a lot of interesting opportunities to do some fun stuff.
Let me ask you, because it's funny. Nick from Houston wants to know. I've been saying for a while, there was a couple people, and the young men that I'm talking about here, where recently they recently formed a team a while back, and I kind of looked at them and said, man, look, I've seen you guys work as a team like 3 or 4 times now. I think this is where your future is. I know it's not the sexy pick to be like, hey, I want to be the singles guy. I want to be the guy. I don't want to share the spotlight. I don't want to be in a tag team. I'm like, but everybody wants to be a singles guy. Like sometimes being the tag team, I think there's just an opportunity if you can develop the identity of the team, the stable, whatever, and grow it. I'm like, I think you guys work well as a team. I mean, do you think more people need to maybe come to the realization to that of like, hey, we've got chemistry here. We could do this. Like we could stand out as a team even more so than trying to do it individually.
For sure. And you see that with teams like the Main Men at Onefall, which I'm sure is who you're talking about, which actually I would like to one day get into little trios with them, I think. And we'll be Team Ginger. It'll be like Team Angle, but just for redheads. But yeah, those guys are great. But it is hard to get on a lot of shows and have big opportunities for everybody. So if you are able to pair up, that usually helps because it's easier to get matches with a lot of people when there is a lot of people. And they've done a really good job of meshing their styles and personalities, and I think they've really found something. Same thing with the superstars, or super wild, as I like to call them. It was Tommy and Nikki were doing their own things individually, They got paired up for a show, and they found this, the rock star personas, and they both like that 80s metal, and they kind of live that lifestyle of partying. They're almost like the Frat House, but kind of stuck in the 80s. They're like a mix of the Frat House and the Outrunners. And then Jimmy Wild was kind of doing his thing, and they all kind of meshed, and their buddies outside. So they brought him into the group as kind of the front man, I guess, lead singer, maybe. I've never heard him sing. I doubt Jimmy Wild is a very good singer, but, he plays that front man role really well, and I think the three of them are a great little trios and faction stable. Super Wild, I'd like to see Super Wild and the main men feuding against each other for a very long time. I think that'll feed families, as they say.
Oh, yeah. I think that's where the money is, Onefall, if you're listening, right? Angela from Orlando, what's one piece of advice you'd give a wrestler walking into the AEW locker room for the first time?
Oh, man, just be cool. Like, everybody there now, like, everybody just gets along. It's a fun environment. Everybody's nice to each other. We all just, you can sit at any table and have a conversation with anybody. AEW's gotten to a really good place where everybody is just cool and fun, and it's a nice experience to go hang out all day and just be friendly with people and have a good time. And then you go out and you entertain the fans, and everybody goes back to the hotel. You can hang out with the Frat House and get some drinks. But yeah, just be cool. That's all.
Look, you brought up the partying, you brought up the whole thing. So let's ask this one, because we're going to pick up the pace a little bit here. I don't want to hold you all day long. Bryce from LA wants to know how much of the Jacked Jameson character is really you, and how much of it is just turned up for the fans.
Nick can tell you, knowing me personally, it's probably 98% me, 2% turned up, right?
100%. There's been some post-show situations, yes, where that was the case. Clearly, yeah. So I agree. Kendall from Royston, Georgia wants to know, do you think factions are being used well in Georgia, on the Georgia Indies right now, or are most groups just kind of thrown together groups?
So I was knowing from experience, I had, BGU, Body Guy University. I had my own indie faction in Georgia. I know it's just tough to book factions for promotions. It's a lot of people. It takes up a lot of space on your card. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of time. So it's just tough to book factions. Really, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus for their faction ability. It's tough to do that around, especially on like a lower independent level. It's just hard to do.
Yeah, we have a mutual friend, Grillo, who has a group, the Crusade.
Yes, actually, I wrote that down in the notes. I wanted to mention Grillo. Grillo's done a really good job with his group. You don't want to cross the boss, the big cannoli. You might end up sleeping with the fishes.
Yeah, they've done a great job. But look, and I think typically, and agree with me here or not, I think kind of what happens is usually there will be a faction put together in one promotion because they're kind of doing something, and they did. They're going to kill me if I miss this. It's Grillo, Hunter James, Teo, Dominic Stuckey, Pat Roach, and Joey Hyder kind of have formed this group. Kat Spencer. Sorry, want to make sure to throw her in there as well.
Yeah, the muscle of the group.
The actual muscle of the group, exactly. And I think they kind of, it's centered around that because of where they were going. But what I admire about them is they kind of acknowledge each other even outside of that universe. Like they're like when they go to Pat Roach and Grillo go to GCW and they're capturing tag team goals, they acknowledge the fact that the Crusade, are the champions here and the champions here and the champion. So, but yeah, I know what you're saying. It's if it's not an integral piece of the puzzle, it is really hard to book 5 people.
Right. And that's what we tried to do with BGU. We would get on shows and we would mention the other members of the group, or we would mention the full group. But not every promoter is going to book everybody in your faction. That's just the way it is. Some people, their styles don't mesh or their personalities don't, whatever it is. Who knows? But it's just tough to get full factions booked on one show.
Jake from Chicago wants to know, what's been the toughest adjustment moving from the indie grind to the AEW Ring of Honor system?
Well, thankfully I haven't had to deal with much of that in my career. My 4th match ever was on AEW Dark. And even before that, I did some extra work. I was part of the Factory. I got chokeslammed by Paul White on Dynamite before that. And then shortly after was my 4th match, which was actually against the Iron Savages. And then my 5th match was also on Dark. And then from there, I was a regular extra pretty much every week for a long time. The only times I wouldn't get booked as an extra was when they would be on like the West Coast. So I kind of came up in the AEW system, really. They want to talk about homegrown talent and pillars. We're the best wrestler, baby. Let's talk about Jacked Jameson, huh? Ground up.
Listen, look, they recognize the talent right out of the gate and they picked you up, right? So it's that simple, right?
Baby. And it's funny because I actually, since then, I've actually done more indies now in the past year than I have my whole career, which I guess just being tied to the company makes it easier to get booked, which is true. But it's been nice because I do enjoy doing indies, and I would like to do more. It's just, I'm committed to Onefall. That is, that's my show. That's where I'm going to be whenever they have shows if I'm available. So I will be Onefall first every time. But, on days where we don't have shows, I'm open. I'm available. Book me. I'll come out and help improve the show. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Listen, we wouldn't be honest if we didn't get to the last question. This last question, by the way, we had this question in probably a dozen formats, and I just kind of picked the first one because everybody asked the question. It was Marcus from Augusta asked, how did the whole thing between you and I even start, and how did it even lead to the 6-man match thing that happened back in it was October of last year?
Man, I don't even know. I think so. But me and Diamond Sheik, my good buddy, we had our own shows. We did some spot shows. There was 5 shows in Atlanta at District Nightclub. It was Championship District Wrestling. And Nick and Myron found out about us. I don't even know how you guys found out about us, but you guys showed up and we ended up talking to you guys, and you guys really put us over on your podcast, and we appreciated that. So we set you guys up with a little VIP spot. Got you guys some nice comfortable couches. We always make sure to take care of you guys. Like, these guys are the best. I want to hook them up, give them nothing but the best all the time. Remember that? How well I took care of you? Yep. And then, I went off with AEW for a little bit, so I kind of disappeared from the indies because we were doing every weekend. I didn't have time to make indie shows. And then, we started Turnbuckle back up. And then Onefall, and then those being QT's promotions, they were kind of built around the AEW schedule, which allowed me to get back on the indies. So me going out there, I got all this experience and TV exposure. I'm thinking, all right, my boy Nick is going to put me over on the podcast, baby. He's going to hook it up. He's going to help me get booked better, help me make some more money. I tune in, and all he's doing is talking about my losses, loss after loss. He's just putting over my losses. That's all he's talking about. He's not talking about me getting better. He's not talking about how I look. Nothing about me adding to the show. Just, Jack Jameson lost again. Jack Jameson lost again. Jack Jameson lost again. So, me having the ego and personality that I do, I had to call him out on it, and it ended up leading to a match. He did hit me in the back of the head with a camera when I wasn't looking. So who's the bad guy here? I don't know. You tell me.
Don't you always say a win's a win?
See, you got me. So I can't even argue. That's it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Listen, it was always out of love. I wanted more from you. I expected more from you. I was always pushing. It was a push thing, not a like, hey, I wasn't taking shots at you. I always wanted more. Maybe I had higher expectations of you. That's what it was. I wanted the better for you. Let's go with that. And that's why, look, and at the end, it all worked out. Let's go with that. It's all worked out.
Hey, here we are. And I think we proved everybody wrong, and we were able to have a nice civil little podcast here today. Yeah,
I completely agree. Look, it won't be the last time that you join both of us. And we're going to get to one more thing, so don't leave. Usually when I play this little thing, a lot of people try to bolt out. We got a big thing we're going to plug here after this. But make sure you're signing up, because the next time, obviously, Jack Jameson is on the show, you'll know about it first if you're a Patreon member, patreon.com/tappedOutPod, because you get the shows early. You get all of that good stuff. And remember, if you're a Patreon member, your questions will pretty much guaranteed to be on the show, barring anything that's just out of the, we all know the Batista ones. We don't ask those ones on the show. So
what's the Batista one?
I'll tell you off the air. I'll tell you. So before we get out of here, man, I want to make sure everybody knows where you're going to be here over the next few weeks, because you do want to go out and see Jack Jameson, because, hey, look, with the Frat House, you never know who's going to show up, who's going to be in the corner. So tell everybody where they can find you at, man.
So this Friday, we have our first show coming off the summer stage. We're going to be at South Main Brewing in Watkinsville, which has really become kind of a home base for us. We do 2 shows there a month. So make sure you catch that this Friday. Next week, we have TV, our first ever TV taping. It's going to be at Southern Honors Building, the Action Building in Canton, Georgia. It's going to be on Thursday, August 7th. It's going to be a free TV taping. So make sure you come out for that. It's totally free. Everybody be there for the first ever TV taping. When I have all the fallout from summer stage, will be there. You talked about the Frat House might show up. Spoiler alert, me and Preston Vance will be in the house. So maybe you'll see us in a tag team match. After that, we got Gainesville the next day, that Friday, August 8th. Gainesville will be out there. Make sure you come out. It sold out last time. I was at TV. I wasn't there, but I believe it sold out last time, correct?
Correct. They literally had to turn people away.
Yeah, so visit onefwlive.com. Buy your tickets ahead of time. Please purchase them beforehand so that you can make it into the show. They might have to turn people away. It's been done before. Then we will be in McDonough, Georgia on the 15th. We are right here, and we'll be back in Watkinsville for Monday Mayhem, August 18th at South Main Brewing. And then we have coming August,
22nd.
22nd. There it is, Nicky Boy. Thank you very much. And that'll be the last show of the month, I believe, because the following week we'll be away for Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor, and Collision in Philadelphia on August 28th and August 30th. So make sure you check out all the Onefall shows. Visit onefwlive.com to purchase your tickets. Also, you can see future shows. You can see the roster. We have some, pictures and some bios on there for most of the people on our roster. We're still adding to that right now. I believe there's new merch out that they just started selling on Summer Stage. You might be able to get. I haven't checked yet, but you might be able to buy it on there. We'll have to double check that for sure. Also follow all the social medias. OneFW, Onefall Wrestling on Instagram and Twitter, X. That's where we post a lot of the pre-tapes. You'll see the backstage interviews and things like that. That's where you're going to find a lot of like the storyline and character stuff. So make sure you're following our social medias. I know QT is getting the Summer Stage show edited and he's putting commentary on it. No word yet on where or when that might be available to watch, but I believe that is in the works. So stay tuned. You may be able to check that out. And then again, just that TV taping on the 7th, free show. Make sure you come check that out because that's going to be a historic night.
Listen, and I want to reiterate a couple locations. Watkinsville and Gainesville, absolutely get your tickets early because both places, I know I've seen it run out of chairs at Watkinsville a few times. Gainesville literally had to turn away because the fire marshal was like, hey, that's it. You can't hold any more people in here. That was crazy to hear. And then the sleeper show, in my personal opinion, is the coming location. That venue is spectacular. I love that
place is great. And the whole staff there is great, and they've been a great spot for us to move into here, and we really appreciate all their help with everything. And that show is growing. It started off a little small. New locations are tough, but as we do more shows there, the fans develop into regulars, and that's really how the audience grows. They'll bring friends, and they'll bring friends, and we've really been having success over there at Cumming.
I'm pushing those Gainesville people. Cumming's not that far. You can shoot down to 400 from the Gainesville side, and you can get there relatively quick. So if you want to go to the Gainesville show, there's a Cumming show not far as well. So check them out there in Cumming. I said I'm a huge fan of the venue.
Yes, and with it being indie shows, we don't have that constant exposure outside the social media, so it does help to stay involved and know the stories and the characters. The more shows you can get to, the better.
I agree 100%. Absolutely make sure you get your tickets. Well, man, hey, we got through it, so I appreciate it. Now that we've showed that we can do this, obviously there'll be an open invite for you to always come back. We've had that conversation a little bit of off air.
Hey, I love talking. I love running my mouth, and I can do it all day, every day. So I'm more than happy to come back on here.
Well, look, that's done. I'm going to hold you to that for sure. But folks, like you said, all over the state of Georgia, Onefall Wrestling, Jacked Jameson, the Frat House, everywhere you go, make sure you're supporting indie wrestling. Look, you can listen to us, but that's all well and good, and we appreciate all the listeners. But go out and buy your tickets. I mean, to any location that's close to you. It's not like Onefall doesn't have a show close to you somewhere. I promise you they do. And remember, guys, buy your ticket and just look around in the crowd. And, well, that guy you might actually see in the ring, but we will see you at the matches.